Hello. So this is the timesheet training for Iowa Western Community College's process through the Campus Compact AmeriCorps VISTA program. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see things and try to answer as many of those frequently asked questions that we normally receive, but please know you can always reach out to us if you have any questions. So my name is Monique. I am the program manager for Community Impact with Iowa and Minnesota Campus Compact, and I work very closely on the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Fun fact, I was an AmeriCorps VISTA member at one point. I served 2 years. So I definitely understand, everything that you're trying to accomplish and hoping to accomplish with your year of service. So this, while it may be an annoying process or is a process, I would just say, just know that we understand this isn't the primary focus of what you're trying to do in your year of service, but that this is really important because this is how we make sure you receive that living allowance, you receive what you should be receiving. And so although it seems kind of secondary to what you're trying to accomplish at your site or with your program, just know that this is a very important process, and that's why we're stressing it, and that's why we are doing this training. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen. So the first timesheet that you're going to submit is going to be a paper copy, and that is simply because you have just started with our program, and so they need a little bit of time at Iowa Western to get your information processed, and it just takes some time. So while we're waiting for that to happen, we have the paper timesheet for you. The biggest thing about timesheets, and not only for this paper one, but for all of the future ones that you'll be submitting through our program, is that we are not concerned about the time. So when I say timesheet, it's because that's just, the traditional sense of what this is, but we do not need to know, and, I say we as in Iowa Campus Compact, Minnesota Campus Compact, we do not need to know what time you are clocking in or clocking out, for lack of better phrasing, at your site. If your site is asking that of you through an additional process, like a form that they're asking you to complete or just keep track of, please do that. They are asking for, a very specific reason. And so even though these processes aren't in alignment for that, just make sure you're doing what your supervisor is asking of you. Yes, I just want to make sure I said that. So for this paper timesheet, what is going to happen is I should have already emailed you the copy that you should have. So you'll have this form hopefully in front of you while you're watching this training, but just know the biggest thing is that you shouldn't mess with the table. So everything should already be made up for you. I should have the correct pay period in there. So the pay period is, a 2-week time frame, 14 days. That's why you have to submit timesheets every other week because of the pay period schedule. So all you're going to do is exist in the yellow highlighted boxes, really. So the first one you're going to do is put your name, so your first and last name as it appears on the records that you shared with us. So if you had a name change or things like that, just make sure that whenever you are going through the Iowa Western payroll system, that onboarding process, submitting your documentation and things like that, you're providing the same name so that you get assigned the correct timesheet, which means you get the correct living allowance that you should be receiving. So you're going to put your name. You can put your ID number if you'd like, but we shouldn't need that. But sometimes you can put your ID number, which is your Iowa Western ID number. So I will also have shared that with you. And if I haven't, just reach out to me or your VISTA leader and we'll share that with you. Or else you can also put your social security number if you'd like. Again, this is going to be something you're emailing back and forth with us. So if you don't feel comfortable putting your social security number, that's definitely understandable. But the ID number here is specifically asking for your Iowa Western ID number because that's how they track you in their system. So you can put it, but also if you put your name, we should be good there. So you will notice that there's no yellow highlights in this entire table. That's because we have it set up exactly how it needs to be processed from the Iowa Western perspective, okay? It seems a little wonky. I'll explain it a little bit, but that's why. So these are the correct dates. They match with the pay period, you know, those 14 days. Again, the time in and out doesn't really matter here. Those are just kind of there as placeholders because there has to be something. So the interesting thing that you'll notice is that obviously there's no time, especially in this first week. And that's because if you started halfway through the pay period, you can only receive your living allowance allotment for those days that you are in the VISTA program. So this is an example for folks that are starting on July 22nd, 2019. And so that's why there is nothing, you know, for July 14th through the 20th, or even the 21st when we look into week 2 of the pay period. But there is a 1 for a VISTA hour, or a VISTA day is really what that relates to. So for each day that you are serving in the VISTA program. So there's a distinction here. So let's say on Saturday, for example, you didn't actually go to your site and do any like service activities that are on your VAD or anything like that. You still have a 1 there because you are an active participant or an active member in the VISTA program. So how it works with VISTA is that they have this living allowance, and since you're not committing to X amount of hours, you're just committing to a calendar year, they kind of consider you to be on duty or really to be an active participant in the program 24/7, 365. That's not to say that you have to be working all of those hours, obviously, but this is how they kind of divide up the living allowance, is that you really receive a daily living rate, which is around, I don't even remember. And it differentiates based on which county you're living in, especially in Minnesota. It is different from county to county depending on what that poverty rate is for the county. So just know that we have it set up. So here you'll see the total is 6 because you started on Monday, the pay period ends on Saturday. That's a total of 6 days. Because of Iowa Western and their HR process, they process that like hours. So that's why it says hours. But just know, we understand that at your site, you are working more than 6 hours, okay? We understand that maybe you didn't work that Saturday, or you didn't work a certain day, or you took some flex time or vacation time. If this is your first timesheet, you should not be using any vacation time. The only instance where that would not be true would be if you are continuing into a second term of service and you had a break between your first and second. That might apply to you, but just know until you have been serving for 3 months, those leave benefits that VISTA gives you, you shouldn't really be using those unless there's like a medical emergency or family emergency or something that comes up, because you have to really get acquainted with your site and know what you're doing before you can kind of take some time off. That's the VISTA policy. So you won't be tracking any of that in this paper process. All of that to say, you won't be tracking that. So this HR use only box, that means the HR department at Iowa Western is the only one that will write things in that box. You shouldn't touch the department, which is Iowa Campus Compact. You shouldn't touch the cost center. That's our code that we need. So again, don't touch anything on this form that's not highlighted in yellow, okay? Oop, and I say that and it's not highlighted in yellow. So the other thing that you're going to do, so once you've provided your name and your ID number, if you would like, and just make sure that, you know, yep, I started on the 22nd and there's a 1 for each day since I started, or if you have, if you're filling this out and you've been serving, so you have been serving for the entire pay period, there should be a 1 for every day that you are in the VISTA program, okay? But again, whenever I send this to you, it should already be populated with the correct information, so you shouldn't have to worry about that, but it's always good to double check. So then what you need to do is you're going to print this off and sign it. So right here where it says claimant, that's you, but you can't just type it in the computer that your name. We have to have an actual signature. So I say print, but you could save this as a PDF and then do that through some PDF software where you can like electronically sign it, but just know it has to look like a signature. It cannot be something you're typing on the computer. So you're going to sign it and put the date, and then you're going to scan it in a PDF format. and send it to me or to Justin Ellis, who's our director. If you get it to one of your VISTA leaders, that's fine too, but it should go directly to me. I'll have been communicating with you up to this point, so you should already have my email, but if you don't, you can always reach out to one of our staff and we can get you connected. But just know your supervisor is not signing this. This is an Iowa Western Community College process, and your site supervisor doesn't really have access to anything there because they're not an employee of Iowa Western. So that's why someone on our staff, Justin, who's our director and oversees our entire VISTA grant, he's the one that's going to sign this and approve it. We have a process in place to make sure that, you know, the information you're submitting to us is accurate and your supervisor signs off on it. It doesn't look anything like this and you won't have to worry about that, but just know we have that process in place. They're submitting it around the same time that you are. It's just that they're two different processes because one's through Iowa Western and one's just through us because we have to kind of track that internally. So just know we are verifying with your supervisor if this is accurate. If there's something that we're noticing that's a little off or we just have a question about, Justin or I will just reach out to you and say, hey, can you fix this or can you answer our question? So just know we have those processes in place. So for your first timesheet, that is what you're going to do. The really important thing for your first timesheet, since it's a paper timesheet and they're still working on getting you processed in the system, which includes all of your direct deposit information that you provided in that onboarding process, is that this first paycheck is going to be mailed to you in the mail. So this will not be direct deposit for your very first paycheck. So it's very important that you provide the most up-to-date address for where this check needs to be sent. So if you've moved since you first accepted the position and we're filling out some of that paperwork or we were asking you for your address, if you've moved since then, since starting your VISTA term, you should let us know ASAP so that we can make sure we're communicating that with Iowa Western and they're sending the check to the right place. That's very important because otherwise you might experience a delay in your living allowance payment because we don't have the right address. So it takes a little bit longer, right, to go through the mail. It may take a few extra days to get to you. That even is extended if it goes to the wrong address and then, the mail system has to send it back or return to sender, and then they have to issue a new check. So it can make the process longer, and we obviously want you to get paid in a quick amount of time. So just make sure that you're always communicating with us if there's an update to like your information, things like that we need to know so we can make sure we're doing everything that we can to get you your living allowance on time. If you for your VISTA service, if you relocated, so relocating means you moved more than 50 miles from your home of record that you provided in the My AmeriCorps portal or you're in your application, that one-time settling in allowance of $750 will be a separate payment, so it won't be included in this first one. So that'll be a separate payment. It should be direct deposit, and it'll be distributed later. So all of that should be happening. Also, with that front payment, you'll get a one-time $25, which covers like getting fingerprinted, which we should be taking care of for you, but just know that's why there's going to be an extra $25 in that too. If you are receiving mileage, the mileage, not the settling in allowance, so the mileage reimbursement will be coming direct deposit from AmeriCorps VISTA, from the Corporation for National Community Service. So you should have already completed your direct deposit information with them. They handle that entire process. So if you have any questions about that, reach out to the VISTA hotline. The National Service hotline is 1-800-942-2677. So they're the ones that I don't have any purview over that. They're the ones that you need to talk to if you have questions or concerns about that whole thing. But the settling in allowance will come from Iowa Western. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. So that's everything you should need to know for your first living allowance payment, which is with the timesheet. Timesheets are very important, so they're always going to be due Mondays by noon. Since this first paper one, there's a little bit more back and forth that we might have to do. I ask that you submit it by 10 a.m. So that way, if I do have any questions or Justin has any questions when he's looking at it, we have more time to kind of do the back and forth. Because the other thing is that if you don't submit your timesheet on time, you may experience a delay in your payment and your living allowance payment because we're as a staff working at a certain time, right, to get all of this through and processed to Iowa Western. Iowa Western staff has a specific framework or frame of time where they're going to be working to process all of this. And so if you submit it late, then we might not be set up to be working on it or processing it right away, and it might be pushed back on the to-do list, right? So just know that it's really important. We want you to get paid when you're supposed to be paid, but if something happens, just let us know if it's going to be late. But just know if that is the case, you might experience a delay in your living allowance paycheck, okay? So for everything else that you will be doing with us, it should hopefully just be electronic. So I'm going to share, not my screen for that, but I'm going to share our instruction sheet. So just give me a second here and I'll get that set up. And again, this is something that I should have emailed to you already, so you should have it. If you don't, just let us know, but you should have access to this document. So this is the time entry instructions. I'm going to start off by saying I'm going through this now so that we don't have to revisit it in 2 weeks, but just know your next timesheet, which will be due in 2 weeks from when you submit your first one, will be electronic. So you're going to need to access their online system for that. It will take at least a week for them to get all of your information processed and have your account set up. So don't try to do it right away. Give it a little bit of time and then try, okay? So how you're going to get electronic access is you're going to go to this link, passwordcentral.iwcc.edu, and then you're going to click on activate my account / change my password, and you're going to complete the form that populates, okay? This is the instructions that you need to follow. There's going to be some instructions on that website. That's for students. So you're not a student, but you're not a staff. So you're living in this very unique place, as AmeriCorps VISTA members often are. And so just know that you should follow these instructions in this sheet and not the ones on the website, because that's going to be confusing otherwise. So your username is just going to be the first letter of your first name and then your last name. There have been very few instances where that hasn't been the case. And if you feel like that's not working for you, try putting the first letter of your first name, the first letter of your middle name, and then your last name. And if it still isn't working, then you're going to email support@iwcc.edu. Again, this is something that we don't have any control over, their internal process. So you can email me or your VISTA leader about the issues that you're experiencing. We work a lot with this, but I ultimately can't go in and tell you what exactly it is that your username is, because that lives in the Iowa Western system, okay? So your username should be that. Your current password should be IWCC, that's with a capital I, lowercase WCC, and then your employee ID number. So that is something that, again, I should have already emailed to you. If you don't have it, just let us know. We'll get it to you. But that is what your current password should be. Then that will prompt you to create a new password. These are the requirements, so you can just do that. And then I would definitely recommend that you save that somewhere, because this is, again, how you're going to be accessing your timesheets, but also your pay, what do they call them? Basically your pay stub, so how you're going to see what you're earning every pay period. It'll break it down for you. And then also your W-2. So when it comes to tax season, you can have electronic access to that, and it will be through the ROC system, or ROC, that platform. The latter half here is giving you instructions on how to access your W-2 electronically. So just know that's what it is. Okay, and it is your pay advices or your pay stubs. So that's what the rest of those instructions are for. This is how you're going to log your second timesheet, and then hopefully all of the future ones too. So you're going to log into ROC or the roc.iwcc.edu. You're going to go to that website, okay? This is what your screen should look like. So on the right-hand side, under the self-service menu where these red arrows are, there's the employee tab. So you're going to click employee, and then you're going to click on time entry and approval. So here it's highlighted on budget, but you're going to click time entry and approval because you're submitting a timesheet, okay? So this is what it should look like. When you've done that, time entry and approval will come up with a sub-menu. So then you're going to click time entry because you are entering your timesheet, okay? Then what you're going to do is this is your time entry screen. So this is the pay period. So depending on the day that you go in and do this, you know, they're due every Monday. The pay period switches over on Sundays. So if you submit it on Monday, you might have two options here. So it's going to be really important that you're paying attention to the dates that they have. So click the little box that says choose only one, because you can only enter for one pay period at a time. So you're going to check that box and click submit, okay? That's what that is. Then your time card will appear. So again, this is going to function a little bit differently because with the way VISTA operates, you're not committing to serving a certain amount of hours, like you're not serving 1,700 hours for your entire year of service. You're just committing to a year of service in a full-time capacity. So how we work within the system, is you're going to put a 1 as kind of like a summary hour is what we call it, for each day that you have been serving in the VISTA program, so that you have been a member in the VISTA program. So here it shows you what it should look like for all of your time sheets, except for when you end your term of service, but we'll go through that later at the end of your term. So you should have a 1 for every day that you have been in the VISTA program. Again, the pay period here, you know, it starts on Sunday. There's Saturdays, Sundays in there. You know, if you're taking a day off, if you're not working on the weekends, if that's your schedule, you still are going to put a 1 for every day of the week if you were an active member in the VISTA program that entire pay period. So this is your second timesheet that you're submitting to us. You submitted your first paper timesheet, and this is your second one. You should have a 1 for every day of the pay period, which would be 14 days. The other columns here, so annual leave hours, sick hours, other times, all of those other columns, you're not going to do anything in those. So we, again, are tracking with your supervisor any VISTA leave that you're taking. This should not be reflected. You know, if you took like an hour of vacation time or took a vacation day, you shouldn't be putting anything here. All we need from you in this process is that you're putting a 1 for each day that you have actively been serving in the VISTA program. So after you do that, then you're going to, and it says right there, put a 1 in each row. Then you're going to click submit. And so don't check this little box, just click submit, because I'll explain so in a minute. So when you click submit, it takes you to this like summary screen, okay? So it'll show regular hours 14, annual leave 0, sick hours 0. Annual leave and sick hours should always be 0 for you because you're a VISTA member, okay? Again, you have leave benefits. Those are not something that we track through Iowa Western system. It's something that your supervisor reports directly to us, okay? So regular hours should be 14 with a total of 14 hours. If there's something that's different than 14, double check it. If you're really like, oh, I only think it should be 12, contact me or your VISTA leader will troubleshoot with you, but just know more often than not, it's going to be 14 unless you like are exiting early for whatever reason or your VISTA term is ending. It should always be 14, okay? So then, where's the other ones? So after you're done checking the summary hours, you can click go back, and that will take you back to the time entry screen, okay? So your time entry screen, again, looks like this. This is just a generic example that Iowa Western's HR team uses. So again, You should only be in the hours worked column, not have anything in the annual leave, sick leave, other columns, only in the hours worked. It should look like you just submitted it earlier. Then you're going to check this little box, which says that it's your electronic signature, and then you're going to submit it. So once you have submitted it, it's going to send it to Justin Ellis, who's our director here in Iowa, and he's going to reference what your supervisor has submitted to us in their own form, and that's how we're going to verify the information that you provided through Iowa Western system is correct. So again, it should look like this. You'll click this little box, it'll have a check in it, and then you'll submit it, and it will send to your supervisor, which it will have Justin's email and not the other person's email there. So that's the process. I hope that information was helpful. Again, this first timesheet is paper, so make sure you have that, and just know we'll be adding this to your calendar. You can set your own calendar reminders. The other thing to really keep in mind is that even though these are due on Mondays, you can always submit them earlier. So, if it's the Friday before it's due, the Thursday before it's due, that's fine. I think if it's like a week earlier, like the Monday before it's due, that gets a little odd. But honestly, if you submit it and we have any questions, we'll just let you know. But especially for this first paper timesheet, definitely recommend you submit it the Friday before or the Thursday before, even whenever you're looking at this, just so we can have that, have more time to process it. And that way, too, you don't feel like you have to rush when you get into the office on Monday morning, especially if you have other meetings and things like that. But your supervisor should be working with you on this. So, like, if you feel like you can't say to them, oh, I have to submit my timesheet, is it okay if I'm a little late to a meeting? And they're like giving you issues, what they shouldn't. They know that this is something you have to do because they have to submit something for you as well. So we don't anticipate any of that kind of things happening, but of course, always communicate with us and with your supervisor about what's happening. So thank you so much for watching this recording. If you have any questions, just let us know. We deal with a lot of different questions, and so don't ever feel like you're bothering us with like an annoying question or something like that, or even if you ask it multiple times, like you're never going to bother us. We want to make sure you're doing it correctly and that you're doing what you should be doing on time, so that, again, you get that living allowance when you're supposed to. So thanks so much and have a great one.